On your Suunto 5, when you come to start a sport mode, let's say walking, running, cycling, anything, always come to that basic down there. Basically, basic means that it's the default cycling mode for Suunto, but you can adjust it the way you want. I mean, if you start this activity, well, you will have, I know I'm inside, you will have your distance, heart rate, speed, time, and if you switch page, you're gonna have your average, your climb, calories, burns, and loop, and your GPS, but that's it. And you can't modify those fields while you are on the activity, and you can't even modify it at all from the watch. If you want to do it, you will need to come to the Suunto application, and you will have to come to the watch on the upper right corner. And then you will need to go into sport mode customization. And you will need to not be into a sport on your watch. So we will need to end this one. And come back here again. So now that it's syncing, we should be able to come back to the watch. Go to sport mode customization and then create a sport mode. From here you choose the sport that you want. If we still want to go into cycling, I will go into cycling, and we should have something that looks like a basic configuration for Suunto. From here you can see there is 4 fields on the first screen, 4 other fields on the second screen, and then the breadcrumb, which is the navigation map, and then we can add a 4th one if we need it. Let's set up one for cycling. You see there is this display with 4 fields. I can change it if I want. So let's say I want a big screen for my most important information while I am cycling. So I will set 3 fields, and let's say I will add a second one. I don't know, maybe if I am climbing, I will want something else. And then I will want, let's say, another one with many information if I ever want to have something specific that I didn't thought to look before. So I will put a 7 field, but 7 field on a single screen. On a small screen like this one, I can tell you that it's tiny when you are cycling at 30-40 kilometers per hour. Under this you can also find some other fields. There is the carousel, which is one that will switch. There is one of the tab that will you will be able to put many information and switch between them. A bit like you see this information, when I press here it switch. Well, that's a carousel. Under that you got the graph. If you want to have a graph for elevation, heart rate, those kind of things, you can add a lap table, or you got intensity tab, or you got some interval tabs again. So let's set the first one. How does it work? We come back again, we just swipe from a screen to another, and if I want to set the information 1, I will click on the information 1 just right here, and keep in note that the time of the day will always be displayed on top. So we have some categories that contain some fields. So the cadence and cycling will be the number of turn you will do every minute. So the average turn you will do, which is a great information to have. But for this you will need more accessories on your bike. So average cadence, lap average cadence, lap max cadence, and your max cadence. Then on distance, we find the current activity distance, so the distance you have done since the beginning of the activity. The current interval distance, so if you're working on the interval, you will get your distance for the interval. And then we've got distance. I believe the difference between distance and current activity distance is that if you are working on a multi-sport mode, the current activity distance will reset every time you switch sport mode. And the distance will be the distance since the very beginning of every single sport you do in the same activity. You've got the lap distance, so if you're walking with the lap, this will reset at every beginning of lap. There is the distance expressed in nautical, and then we've got the remaining distance to the end of the route. So if you have planned a route of 10 kilometers and you have done 5 on this, it will remain 5 kilometers until the end of the route. And then we've got the remaining distance to POE and waypoint. The difference between a POE and a waypoint is that the POE is a point you have set on the map. It's a single point on the map, but the waypoint is a point that is part of a route. So in case of the waypoint, you will have the remaining distance accordingly to the route. And for the POE, you will have a distance in straight line. So if you don't go into straight line, you will still have the distance in straight line, but that doesn't mean that this is the distance you still need to do. Then into duration and time, we've got the current activity duration, the current interval duration. The duration, again, is the same principle as I told earlier. The duration and the current activity duration will vary if you are in multi-sport mode. Then we've got end of route ETA and end of route ETE. The difference between ETE and ETA, well, it says estimated time of arrival and estimated time en route. Basically, if it's 10 o'clock and you have 1 hour left to walk or to cycle, this 1 hour will be the ETE, and the ETA will tell you that you will arrive at 11 o'clock. Then we've got the lap duration, so the time passed since the beginning of the lap. Then we've got POE, waypoint, ETA, and ETE, which is the same thing as we have seen a little bit earlier, but this time it will be for a waypoint or a POE instead of route. Then we've got the previous activity duration, the time of the next sunrise and the time of the next sunset, and the time of the day. And like I told you, you always have the time of the day in tiny little information on top of the watch. So you probably don't need to put the time of the day here. Then we've got the heart rate, so percentage of max heart rate. So if your maximum heart rate is 200 and your heartbeat actually at 150, you are at 75 of your max heart rate. Your average heart rate and the average percentage of max heart rate. So basically the heart rate just right here will show your beats per minute, and the average will show the average, and the percentage of max average will show exactly the same thing, but instead of showing it to you into beats per minute, it will show it to you in percentage of the maximum of your heart can handle. Then we've got the exact same information for interval and for lap. And finally, your max heart rate since the beginning of the activity. Then we've got the interval section, so current interval distance, current interval duration, current interval repetition, so the number of time you have done an interval. And then all those information are pretty obvious, so I don't need to explain them. And then we arrive at navigation. Some of them are going to repeat, so end of route, ETA. We already see that a little bit earlier. Yes, it's exactly the same thing. We all see them a little bit earlier. They just put it back into navigation. In other, you can put an empty field or the lap number. And finally, you got the calories, epoch, and PTE, which are some information that I'm really not used to use. EPOC is for excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, and PTE is for peak training effect. I encourage you to go read about it. I'm not the best person to explain you what it is. And then you've got the recovery time, so how much time you need to rest to recover from your current activity. And then you've got the power zone, which I never use, but I guess is expressed in watt. Again, those ones are pretty obvious, so no need to explain it. And then you've got the vertical. Those ones are kind of interesting. So the altitude will be your altitude right now. Now, if you have a Suunto 5, note that this information is not really accurate because it's only done with the GPS information. This one doesn't have a barometer, but if you have a Suunto 7, a Suunto Mbit 3, Suunto Mbit 2, a Suunto Mbit 9, you've got a barometer inside and the altitude should be accurate. Then you've got the ascent, also known as elevation gain. So this will tell you how much meter you have climbed since the beginning of the activity. The average vertical speed, so how much meter per hour do you climb since the beginning of the activity in average. And the other one is the same thing, but instead of being expressed in meter per hour, it will be expressed in meter per minute. The descent, which is the reverse of the ascent, so how much meter you have go down. And then we've got the same information for a lap. And then you got the max altitude, which will be the maximum altitude you will have reach in the activity. So the highest summit elevation, and then the minimum altitude, the vertical speed, then your vertical speed in meter per hour and in meter per minute. So it's exactly the same information that we have seen a little bit earlier, but now instead of being into average, it will be in real time. So you pick the information that you want. So let's say that for this kind of activity, the number 1 will be the distance, the number 2 will be my speed, and the third one will be my heart rate. So I can do another screen if my Suunto want to remain. Maybe for the second one, I will want, again, my distance. And this time, instead of having my speed, maybe I will want to have a screen for when I do elevation. So on this one, I will want to have vertical. I will want to have my vertical speed in meter per minute. And on the third one, I will want to have my elevation. So I want to know my current altitude. And if I go on a third screen for something that I want to look sometime, maybe I will go for calories, total elevation gain, or those kind of information. But this is up to you. And when you're done, you can give it a name. So this one will be O2 cycling. And then I'm gonna hit save. And then when this is done, you will have this port mode into your Suunto watch. And it says it have been synced just now. So if I go on the watch here and I go on exercise, you see I've got the cycling, how to cycling, and on this one I will got all the information that I've just put. Yes, I know there is no GPS signal inside. And yes, because I didn't adjust it, they are all times. And yeah, it's pretty much that's it. So this is it. Thank you for watching. I hope it helps. If yes, please smash the like button. If you are planning to buy this watch, you can see my link in the description. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you can find me back easily next time you need help. If you want to see my other tutorial about this watch, you can see my playlist just right here, and you can also find me on my main channel just right there. Thank you for watching, take care, and see ya.